Hello, and thank you for joining me as we take a look at another psalm. It would be difficult, if not impossible, to overstate the importance and significance of Psalm 110, which is where we've got to in our series of devotional studies through the Psalms. This psalm may only be 7 verses long, but it contains a megaton of truth. The first thing I want us to notice is that it is one of the messianic psalms, but it is a messianic psalm like no other. All the other messianic psalms have elements within them or references to the Messiah, or they portray David, for example, as a type or foreshadowing of the Messiah himself. But in 110, there are no types, no shadows, no hints. It is without question all about the Messiah himself. Matthew Henry wrote, "This psalm is pure gospel. It is only and wholly concerning Christ, the Messiah promised to the fathers and expected by them." But secondly, the importance of this psalm is also seen in the way it is used by the New Testament writers. This is the most quoted, the most frequently referred to of all the psalms by the New Testament writers. It's directly quoted around 25 times. And verse 1 alone, an important Christological verse, as we'll see in a minute, is referred to on several important occasions. See, this psalm depicts Jesus as God, as priest, as king, and as the priest king. And we're going to take a look at the first of those in this study and then come back for a second look as we consider his work as priest and king. We could spend a great deal of time considering the truths and implications of verse 1 alone. But even before we do that, I want us to notice something of great importance. Jesus himself quotes verse 1 in a dialogue he has with a group of Pharisees. It's recorded for us in Matthew 22, in Mark 12, and in Luke 20. Jesus had asked them a profound question, which was beyond their comprehension, never mind their ability to adequately answer. The question was, whose son is the Christ? Their response was true as far as it went, but only partly true. And it revealed a great level of unbelief on their part. "The son of David," they replied. Well, that of course is, as Jesus points out, true. But he goes on to point out that in Psalm 110 verse 1, David himself calls the Messiah my Lord. So the Messiah, who is of course Christ himself, must be so much more than simply the son of David. He must also be the Son of God. So I want you to notice in this first look at this psalm two things. First of all, Jesus affirms that David was the inspired author of Psalm 110. Jesus says in Matthew 22, David in the Spirit says. Frankly, it staggers me how many commentators, even professing believers, want to debate the authorship of this psalm when we have from the lips of Jesus himself the statement that David wrote it under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. By the way, that same principle applies to Jesus acknowledging the truth about Adam or Noah or Sodom and Gomorrah, other biblical people and facts which are frequently questioned by the so-called religious experts of our day. But then secondly, look at the massive doctrinal truth of this verse. David is recording here a conversation between the first and second persons of the Trinity. "The Lord said to my Lord," says David. Now the first Lord here is all in capitals. And that indicates that in the original Hebrew the word is Yahweh or Jehovah, God's covenant name. This is God the Father speaking. The second Lord, to whom the Father speaks, is in lowercase with a capital L. So this is a translation of the word Adonai. And David describes him as my Lord. So it's someone even greater than David himself, someone to whom David recognizes he owes servitude and allegiance. So Jesus uses this verse to make his own claim to deity. He is referring to a conversation he himself had with the Father. Do you know, when I read verses like that, it makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. We're eavesdropping intentionally on a conversation between God the Father and God the Son. Then on the day of Pentecost, Peter quotes this same verse, again denying that David was speaking about himself, and using it to confirm that the Pentecostal signs being witnessed on that day were themselves proof of the fact that the crucified and risen Christ was now ascended into heaven and enthroned at the Father's side in fulfillment of Psalm 110 verse 1. So you see, this first verse of this amazing psalm leaves us in no doubt as to who wrote the psalm and, much more importantly, who Jesus is. He is God himself. Following his work of atonement on the cross, he now occupies the place of supreme power and authority. And in our next look at this psalm, we'll see the nature of the authority that he exercises. So until then, the Lord bless you and the Lord keep you.